January 8th, 2024 Troy City Council meeting. Please rise for an invocation and remain standing for a special treat for our Pledge of Allegiance. This evening for our invocation, I ask that you bow your head and take a moment of silence, take a moment of personal prayer, personal centering. I recognize that we all have many different faith traditions here in this community. And as I pray to my God, I ask that we all continue to have a blessed life of safety here and peace in the city of Troy, and ask that you be with each and every one of us here in our community. May the thoughts that come to our minds and the words that come out of our mouths here from the council table, as well as the public comment in the audience and throughout the city hall, come with grace, peace, and care. In his name we pray, amen. It's all right, my special treat, I forgot. Today we have a very special treat. We have the Weeblos Den from PAC 1705 from Hill Elementary School to come forward and to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. See the flag right there, guys. Okay. We'll start when you start, okay? Hands on our hearts. Or scout. Or...
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
There you go.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll officially call the January 8th, 2024 Troy City Council meeting to order and ask for the roll call from Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Brooks?
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Krenga?
Here.
Councilmember Chanda?
Here.
Councilmember Gunn? Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Here.
We have quorum present this evening. I did receive notification from Councilmember Gunn that he'd be unable to attend this evening's meeting due to being out of the county. So I'll move resolve that Troy City Council hereby excuses the absence of Councilmember Mark Gunn at the regular City Council meeting of January 8th, 2024 due to being out of the county.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick, that we approve the absence of Councilmember Gunn as read into the record. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. First up are certificates of recognition and special presentations. We actually don't have any this evening. We have no carryover items, no public hearings. So we move on to public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. We have one person signed up this evening. I will make a reminder later during public comment as well, but our rules for public comment are printed in our online and also in our agenda packet. You are to speak, you have no more than 3 minutes. You're to speak to the council body as a whole. It's not a question and answer period. And although it may feel awkward because there's some silence after you speak, there is an opportunity later in the agenda for any response if necessary from us up here. So with that said, we have one person signed up for public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents, and that is Linda Swanson. Is that you, Linda? Yeah. All right, please come forward. Sorry, I left that part off. I also make a note, we have our timer here. When the light turns yellow, you have 1 minute left. When it turns red, your 3 minutes is up.
I made notes. I'm calling about the corners proposal at Livernois and Square Lake Road and along Livernois. And my thoughts about this. I'm concerned because it's going to be a busy thoroughfare instead of a community. The small businesses in the corridor on Livernois will go out of business. We have a gym at Lifetime Fitness and many more workout places, so we don't need any more gyms. The type of person that this will attract wants to expend little effort and everything to be easy. I go out of Troy for practically nothing. I go down to the Royal Oak Farmers Market once a week. I wish we had a building in Troy that was heated. There was a farmer's market. And I just go out of Troy if I go to the symphony or the opera. and I find that I have everything I need here. I think this proposed community PUD will disrupt a lot of life in that area. And this is this is where Troy started out, and it's going to deprive us of that atmosphere. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Swanson. That concludes those that have signed up for public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. I will take this opportunity to do a brief reply to let you know that that's actually not on our agenda tonight, but it is on the Planning Commission agenda tomorrow evening. They will be discussing that PUD. It'll come to us theoretically after it's gone through Planning Commission, so we heard everything you said tonight for sure. But if you did want to have your voice heard to the Planning Commissioners, it's tomorrow in the same room at 7 o'clock. They will be hearing this matter, and I expect there'll be several people there as well. But thank you for coming forward. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. All right, that concludes Council Administration reply to public comment. We have no postponed items, so we move on to regular business. I-1 is board and committee appointments. I have no mayoral appointments this evening, but we do have city council appointments. So I'll turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
Thank you, Mayor. We'd like to move the appointments of to the Southeastern Michigan Council of Governments to represent us there. Councilmember Hamilton as the delegate and Councilmember Chanda as the alternate for terms expiring on 11/2025.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve the nominations and appointment to the Southeastern Michigan Council of Government, SEMCOG, Councilmember Hamilton as a delegate and Councilmember Chanda as an alternate for the terms expiring in November of 2025. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes. Motion carries. That concludes city council appointments this evening. Move on to I-2, which is board and committee nominations. I do have a couple mayoral nominations this evening that are funny coming from my voice, but I will move the nomination of Ethan Baker to the Global Troy Advisory Committee for city council term expiration, as well as the Local Development Finance Authority, also for my city council term.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, that we approve the nomination of Mayor Ethan Baker to Global Troy Advisory Committee and the Local Development Finance Authority as the alternate for city council, as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Motion carries. That concludes mayoral nominations this evening. Any city council nominations? I meant to check with you. All right. Next up, I-3, there's no closed session requested this evening, so we move on to I-4, 2023-24 City Council Rules of Procedure, and that'll be introduced by our city clerk, Haley Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, the rules of procedure are before you mostly to add Councilmember Chanda to the rotation for Mayor Pro Tem. And also, there's a clarification that we added that clarifies how the rotation is set in the rules. So that's been a process that we've followed for as long as I can remember, and I've been here for 23 years. But it's just good to have it written down for clarity.
Thank you. Any questions about I-4? All right, someone like to move the resolution? Councilmember Hamilton?
I'll move I-4, 2023-2024 City Council Rules of Procedure as written in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hamilton, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga, that we approve I-4, 2023-2024 City Council Rules of Procedure as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I-5, request for approval of satellite clerk's office and other election services, February 27th, 2024 presidential primary election. That'll also be introduced by City Clerk Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight before you for this item, Michigan election law requires that if the clerk's office is going to issue absentee ballots or fully register people to vote anywhere outside the clerk's office proper, we would need to get council's approval 30 days before the activity were to begin. So what we would like to do is, because the February 27th election is unusual, any presidential primary is unusual, with the fact that voters have to choose whether they would like a Republican or a Democratic ballot, so that it causes questions. And also all of the election law changes that were made in the last year. We would like to hold what's called a satellite clerk's office, which would be all the services that are election related that the clerk's office offers, but we would operate out of room 302 in the community center, which is across the hall from where the early voting, before early voting begins. But we would be offering the same services out of the meeting room at the Troy Public Library for the same purpose, just to try to answer questions for people. We'd have some informational posters. We'd offer voter registration and absentee ballots and just any other election-related services that people might need. And then in this memo, I also provided to council and anyone who's reading it pretty much every date I could think of that would be relevant to anything election related that someone might have a question about. So our website, we have everything on our website. If anybody has any questions, they're always feel free to call us or visit the website, because everything that's in here is on the website, plus we have a lot more out there. And I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. Any questions for the city clerk? Councilmember Chanda.
Just a quick clarification, like the satellite office will be open in addition to the regular office?
The 3 of the weekend dates, the 17th, let me just go to the dates.
The weekdays, I mean.
The weekdays, yes. We are open 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. The early voting center is open 8:30 to 4:30, so those times line up with us. So because of that, during the week, voters would have to come over to the clerk's office in City Hall. But on the weekend, 17th, 18th, and 25th, the clerk's office in City Hall would not be open, but the satellite office would be open. On the 24th is the Saturday before the election. Clerk's offices are all required to be open, so the clerk's office in City Hall will be open and the satellite office will be open.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig.
Thank you, Mayor. So also clarification, Clerk Dixon, given this is weekends, will it be current staff? You won't need to have volunteers to be working at this satellite office?
Right. Because of the fact that we're offering absentee ballots and registering voters, they would have to be fully licensed, registered clerk's office staff members who are authorized to access QVF, which requires training, and we wouldn't have volunteers operating at that level.
Any other questions? It's a softball, I think. But can you talk just for a second about when you have off-site clerk's offices, the security measures in place to make sure when there's ballots involved or anything related to that nature, how that's handled?
So because this part of the community center is being used for the early voting center, we have last November, because that's when we started offering early voting, we have pretty extensive security measures behind the scenes, as well as everything is locked down every night when no one's there, and only the clerk's office staff has access to those rooms in the community center. We have internal security with having any ballots or any kind of secured documents would be sealed into bags or brought back to the clerk's office every night. So there wouldn't be anything left out in the open where anyone could access it. The security from the early voting center, it's the same as we offered in November. It worked very well. And then as far as personal security, we work really closely with the Troy Police Department, and we have a plan in place that we've offered, or we've utilized every election for probably going on 10 or 15 years, and it's always worked very well. So we're very confident that there's ample security in place.
Thank you. All right, someone like to move the resolution or ask a question? Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move I-5, request for approval of satellite clerk's office and other election services February 27th, 2024 presidential primary election as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Chanda, that we approve I-5, request for approval of satellite clerk's office and other election services, February 27th, 2024, presidential primary election as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I-6, 2024 City Council meeting schedule, and that'll be introduced by our Deputy City Manager, Robert J. Bruner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Back in December, City Council discussed scheduling 3 meetings for City Council orientation, as well as a meeting for the city manager recruitment. At that time, we identified some scheduling conflicts, and hopefully now we have 4 dates that are agreeable to everyone who needs to be there, and so those dates are presented for your consideration.
Thank you. Any questions? I'll move I-6, 2024 City Council meeting schedule as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve I-6, 2024 City Council meeting schedule as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
Mayor, thank you. Just one comment. It occurred to me since our discussion in December that one of the reasons that we did this a few years back is it was recommended to us as part of our continuous improvement coming out of the last city manager experience where frankly, we, as a body, had struggled at that time in the council manager form of government. And one of the recommendations that came from the outside investigative body was that we make sure we do the best orientation processes that we can so that as a city council team, that we're working according to the norms of how we're supposed to govern, and to have a better understanding of how that would be. It's easy once you've been serving in the role for a while to take it for granted that everybody has that understanding. And frankly, you forget that you might need a reminder now and again. As we review our ethics every year and whatnot, it's helpful to us to do this. And it's helpful if the community pays attention too and learns along the way. So I think last meeting, Deputy City Manager Bruner had presented dates, and we tripped over ourselves a little bit about if we even felt we needed to do this. And as I reflected after the meeting, I guess I just wanted to say, especially for our newer members of council, that there was a method to the madness when we did this the first time. We are a new body, we have several new members, and to do it as a team is very beneficial as we move forward and helps us protect the integrity of our governance as we work together. And so that's why I'll be supporting, among a lot of reasons, the proposal that's before us here tonight.
Thank you. Well put. Any other discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up, thank you, Bob, for managing that. Next up is I-7, Angela Blanchard versus City of Troy et al. Proposed settlement agreement. And that'll be introduced by our city attorney, Lori Grigg-Bloom.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an opportunity to resolve a pending lawsuit involving, it stems from a car accident that happened on February 26th of 2021. The amount of the settlement is much less than the MMRMA reserves, and it is even lower than what the case evaluation award was. So there's a proposed resolution that authorizes us to execute that. and finalize this case. I would just indicate that it is not an admission of liability. The settlement is only because it's going to take internal resources, it's going to take our time, it's going to take our energy, and then there's some uncertainty when you proceed with litigation.
Thank you, City Attorney Bloom. Any questions? Someone like to move the resolution? Let's jump. Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
I'll move I-7 Angela Blanchard versus City of Troy et al. Proposed settlement agreement as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve I-7 Angela Blanchard versus City of Troy et al. Proposed settlement agreement as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. That concludes regular business this evening. Next up is the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull an item from the consent agenda for further discussion? Councilmember Hamilton.
I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hamilton, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain Craig, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes, motion carries. If you're here for an item on the consent agenda this evening, they all have been approved. Next up are memorandums and future council agenda items. There are none this evening. So we move on to public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. We do have several people signed up this evening. Same comments I made earlier when we had our earlier public comment. You are given 3 minutes per person. Please address the body as a whole. It is not an opportunity for a back and forth discussion. We ask that you have reviewed the rules or understand the rules. We also want you to understand that applause is not permitted in our council chamber, so please refrain from applauding after someone speaks, even if you feel very passionately about what they said. We understand that, but it is a business meeting in here, so please respect that rule. So long as everyone follows the rules, which I expect, we'll move this quite nicely, I suspect. So, that said, as also as a reminder, the clock in front of you gives you the 3 minutes. When the light turns yellow, you have 1 minute left. So it can sometimes move very fast or very slow. Be wary of that. And when it turns red, your time is up and we will have to move on to the next person. All right, first up is Abdul Rahman Hamad.
Hi, all. I'm a Troy resident and ophthalmologist. This is a message sent to me by my aunt in Gaza early October. It's pitch black at night, and every few minutes we hear loud explosions around us. The children wake up screaming and crying. We don't know if we're going to make it in the morning. Little did they know that things would only get worse. Every night since, I wake up multiple times at night to check my phone, hoping that I'll hear good news, but communication is very, very difficult. I can't stop thinking about them. Since then, more than 50 extended family members of mine have been killed, half are children. More than 10,000 children have been killed so far. Now, these are the worst type of deaths you can ever imagine. Explosions, burns to the bones, crushed under concrete, limbs falling off. The lucky ones are killed immediately. Others not so lucky. They endure a slow, painful death under the rubble with injuries and days of no food or water. Maybe it's better just to die or be killed, they tell me. Injuries are worse, amputations without anesthesia, infections, and maybe death after all. And if not killed or injured, many of these children have seen their loved ones killed in front of their eyes. Just imagine their horror. I can't stop thinking about them. Water, food, electricity, and fuel cut off 3 months ago. Premature babies die without electricity. You know, they die when hospitals are bombed. 2 million people have been displaced, becoming refugees again after their parents and grandparents were made refugees. It's cold, it's rainy, and all they have are tents. The lucky ones, that is. I can't stop thinking about them. My patients constantly ask me, "What's wrong, doc?" "You're not the same." I try to smile. but I can't stop thinking about them. Now, I'm here today to urge you all to consider and recognize the great difficulty with which I and so many Troy residents have been following the news. And I urge you to stand in solidarity with all whom have been affected by these tragic events. Everyone, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, and all others. I urge you to stand with the ending of this suffering through a ceasefire. Thank you all.
Thank you. Before we continue, I do want to take just a 2-minute recess. If anyone would like to leave, it's fine to do so. Otherwise, you're welcome to stay. But I'll take a 2-minute recess before we continue. All right, we'll go back on the record. Next up is Mazar Memon.
Hello, mayors and council members. My name is Mazar Memon. I'm a tech entrepreneur here in Troy, and I wanted to kind of talk about an incident that happened some time ago. About 2 years ago, me and my wife, we were attending a meet and greet at our local school, and we're new from out of state, and so we're checking out the the public school, see how it was, and after a lengthy presentation, they're describing how they're using the best educational methods, the scholastic achievements of their students, very impressive. But they mentioned one thing, and they said that in the current class, the number of languages that are spoken in the current class is about 20, more than 20 languages. And this is sort of like the strength of Troy. Troy is unique. It's very diverse. It's very special. And they said that our public school is focusing on training our kids to become responsible, inclusive, and productive global leaders. And that was really inspiring to me. And, as you heard, there's a tragedy unfolding. Many kids have been killed over the past three months. And, it's not just a number. We can forget these things. We can sort of like ignore the news. But, those, unfortunately, that news arrives at our kids, right? They hear about it. They're asking themselves, what is my mom and dad going to do about it? What is our mayor going to do about it? What is our council members going to do? What about my teacher? What do we do about that? Everything from our taxes being used for, those reasons, and our international reputation being tarnished a bit. But most importantly, what kind of world do we leave? And I think Troy is really special, right? From what I've seen, I'm from Texas, and I see what you have here is very, very unique. And so I think as residents of Troy, a city known for its diversity, its global inclusion, I think we have an obligation to speak out against such injustices. Very simple. And we should say that, we stand for tolerance for all races, religions, colors, backgrounds. And as a community, we welcome people from all walks of life. And we will also stand with them in times of need, like today, like now. And we should show our children the true meaning of being a global citizen, being empathic, courageous, and principled. And I think that is the image of Troy that we should represent. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Marvad Mukelis.
Good evening. I'm Marvat Mukalis, a resident of Troy for nearly 20 years. I was drawn to Troy for its exceptional safety and mostly diversity, to be honest, and excellent schools. I was an active volunteer at Leonard Elementary, and I've been involved in our community, especially in celebrating diverse cultures through annual events that I used to hold with other moms. As a Palestinian American with family in Gaza, I'm deeply concerned about the ongoing conflict. For 93 days, the war has raged, and my heart is heavy with worry for my relatives and the innocent kids there. I often wonder about the well-being of my cousins. Are they safe? Do they have enough food to eat? Or are they even alive? Every day I wonder if any of them are still alive. And it's even more distressing to think that my tax contributions might indirectly support this crisis. I believe it's our moral duty not to ignore the plight of children caught in conflict. I am here and hoping your conscience and compassion will guide you to support a ceasefire resolution to protect the children of Gaza. Troy is a community that prides itself on its diversity. It's time for us to live up to that ideal by standing in solidarity with those who are suffering overseas and here at home. Thank you for considering my sincere plea. I appreciate it.
Next up is Sana Shakir.
Dear Mayor and Council members, my name is Sana Shakir. As a resident of Troy, a physician, and a mother, I've always appreciated our city's diversity and vibrancy. My husband and I chose Troy as our home for its promise as a nurturing environment for families. Today, we as engaged members of this community wish to express our concerns that affect not only us, but our neighbors and friends across various faiths, ethnicities, and political affiliations. In recent months, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza has escalated alarmingly. Airstrikes have indiscriminately targeted civilian structures, including homes, schools, refugee camps, places of worship, and the resulting casualties are heart-wrenching and widespread. As a physician, I am particularly disturbed by the situation facing healthcare professionals in Gaza. The deliberate targeting of hospitals, clinics, ambulances, coupled with the tragic loss of both healthcare workers and patients, has led to a catastrophic breakdown of the medical services and collapse of the healthcare system. Essential and life-saving care has become inaccessible to most. This dilemma, the dilemma faced by these healthcare workers choosing between personal safety and patient care is absolutely unimaginable to me in my practice here. The U.S.'s role in providing funding and military aid in this context is a matter of deep concern for many in our Troy community. This situation demands action at all levels of government, starting from our local sphere. We advocate for human rights and urge the adoption of a ceasefire resolution. We believe in the sanctity of all human life, regardless of ethnicity or religion. It's vital that our community reflects these values. We strongly urge you to consider a resolution supporting a ceasefire, aligning with our community's commitment to human rights and dignity. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Sarwat Siddiqui.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sarwat Siddiqui. I'm pretty much sure you're familiar with my face as I came here before. I'm a Troy resident for 22 years and regularly paying taxes on it. I paid regularly. I paid last year about $30,000 or more to the federal tax. I have a feeling is that whatever we are paying to the federal tax I'm part of that to killing the innocent, those kids, women's, because that money is going to those people who are oppressors. So my request is that to you, this is not related to the ethnicity, religion, caste, or anything like that. This is purely humanitarian, you know. Imagine that more than 30,000 people has been killed, innocent people. So my request is that to pass the resolution, same as like we did, I think about a couple of years ago, 1.5 years ago, with the Ukraine, and to support that, I will appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up is Barb Yegley.
I wasn't planning on speaking on this topic, but I do want to say that I live in a community that has a lot of diversity. There were Muslims, Pakistanis across the street, and Indians kitty corner to me, and we all got along. And I think it's shameful that we don't have that kind of congeniality in other parts of the world. But we also have to remember that any ceasefire resolution or a call for a ceasefire resolution must also include a condemnation for the attack by Hamas against civilians at a rave party back in October. And since Hamas is the government of Gaza, it was basically an act of war, as I understand it. And the Israelis are responding in kind. I would like to see them get along over there as much as anybody. I mean, because as a Christian, it's the Holy Land to me, the whole area, Jordan and Israel, and so I would definitely would like to see peace in the land, and I would support any efforts towards that, but I think we should focus on keeping peace within our community and to, share each other's burdens and help out wherever we can. And the fact that our tax dollars are going to support these types of wars has been a problem for our country for a while. Our government does a lot of things that I don't approve of, but every 3 months, I'm reminded that I have to pay my taxes because my husband is a small business owner. So my sympathies are with our community here and with their families over there, and certainly I will keep them in my prayers.
Thank you. Next up is Soraya Esak Varashia.
Getting old, have to put on my glasses. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and the management of Troy City. My name is Soraya Esak Varashia. I have been a resident of Troy since the year 2004. My children have both graduated from Troy High School and have actually left the state. My husband still works in Troy. I work in Pontiac, but we still pay Troy City taxes. I grew up in an apartheid South Africa, where even in our darkest moments, our townships had some basic food, shelter, water, medical care. Right now, we do not even see the most basic of humanitarian needs met for food, water, shelter, medical care out there in the Gaza Palestinian areas. I'm going to keep this very, very short and very simple. I'm aware that the city of Troy has a new policy of not issuing a proclamation after the one that was done for Ukraine a few years ago. My ask today is that you will consider, and I think there was an email that came out from Megan that said that The city of Troy does not pass on any resolutions or proclamations regarding ideology, politics, or religion. I'm good with that, but this is not a call in the name of ideology, politics, or religion. This call for a ceasefire is one based on humanitarian rights and humanitarian needs. Troy prides itself that it is a city of tomorrow, today, and I think we are. But at this point in time, let us not find ourselves to be a city of yesterday, where our neighboring cities that have already passed resolutions are the cities that are looking into it right now. All I am asking for, and really from the bottom of my heart, is that you reconsider your decisions and actions and put this on your agenda at your next meeting. I am very well aware that you will not call for a ceasefire right now unless it is an item on your agenda. So again, if we can put this on the agenda item for the next meeting, will be really appreciated. As a South African, I know my ostrich. And an ostrich is a very intelligent bird, but it buries its head in the sand thinking that no one can see him. Let us not be that ostrich. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Saba Maroof.
Hello, my name is Saba Maroof, and my husband and I are both physicians and have been citizens of Troy since the year 2005. I work right here in Troy, where I treat adults, children, and families of all backgrounds. We first lived in Somerset Park Apartments, and I still remember studying for medical school boards and looking out my window and appreciating the vibrancy of life on those sidewalks and feeling so blessed to live in such a colorful and diverse city. We loved it so much we decided to raise our family here and soon thereafter bought our first home. All 4 of our children were born in Troy, and now we're in our second house in the city, and our older boys are both at Troy High. Today, we are here as citizens of Troy to ask the city to consider adding this to the agenda to pass a proclamation for an immediate de-escalation and ceasefire in Gaza. We realize that some may feel that international events are out of the scope of City Council's jurisdiction, but the ongoing bombardment for the past 3 months has been on the hearts and minds of your constituents and the citizens of Troy every day. We have been collectively calling and writing our state representatives and senators, as well as the White House daily, and our voices seem to be falling on deaf ears. Now we are heartbroken as we watch a genocide unfold in real time with our tax money. My husband and I both treat children physically and mentally, and we cannot stop thinking about the toll this is taking on the victims in Gaza. Troy is but one city, but our voices can make a significant impact and a difference, we believe. If our state and federal representatives will not respond, we hope that you, our local representatives, will hear our voices. Our appeal is for a gesture of solidarity and understanding, reflecting our community's commitment to global empathy and peace. Calling for a ceasefire conveys our compassion for humanity. We hope the Troy City Council listens to our collective voices of concern, following the example of surrounding municipalities such as Detroit, Canton, Hamtramck, Dearborn Heights, Dearborn, Ypsilanti, and Kalamazoo and Wayne counties. Our request is simple and symbolic. We ask the Troy City Council to acknowledge and support its community by recognizing the shared values we hold dear. We are hopeful the Troy City Council will listen to our collective voices just as it did when standing with solidarity with the people of Ukraine. As mentioned, Troy has always prided itself in being the city of tomorrow, today. Today, we hope that we can add this to the agenda and that you vote to pass a proclamation for a ceasefire. Thank you for considering our collective voices on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Talia Azarudin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Talia Azarudin. I'm a human resources professional and a 3-time graduate of Troy School District. Tonight, you have listened to the voices of my fellow residents, and I stand in agreement with their sentiments and concerns. We recognize that a ceasefire resolution within within our city scope will not directly resolve the complexities of the situation in the Middle East. We are also aware that this is predominantly a matter of foreign affairs. However, our request is simple and symbolic. We ask that the Troy City Council to acknowledge and support its community by recognizing the shared values we hold dear, just as it did for Ukraine and other similar situations. Our appeal is for a gesture of solidarity and understanding, reflecting our community's commitment to global empathy and peace. Thank you for considering our collective voice on this matter.
Thank you. Next up is Mohammed Badrul Islam.
Hello, dear council members and mayor. My name is Mohammed Badrul Islam. I'm a parent and a businessman, small business owner who is serving this nice, affluent community in Troy. We are the citizen of modern era, and what is happening in Gaza is just burn my heart. I see my kids are going to school, coming back, playing, and down there kids are losing their legs. I know you guys are a go-to person. I know your voice will not change the voice of the government, but you guys are the people we go to. So my request is that the council understands what we are feeling and stands solidarity of a permanent ceasefire. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Next up is Tamim Asaf.
Good evening. My name is Tamim Asaf. I'm a graduate of Troy High School. My family's been in Troy for 30 years now. And as Americans of Palestinian heritage, we're deeply saddened and shocked by the current events in Palestine, in Gaza. And but this is the latest chapter in a conflict that's been ongoing for 75 years now. It didn't start on October 7th. And Israel's response to the October 7th attacks, it's not controversial to say this, that it's devastated life in Gaza. And to the point that an Israeli historian called it a textbook case of genocide. Raz Segal is an associate professor of Holocaust and Genocide Studies, and he made these statements on October 13th, only 6 days after the beginning of the Israeli response. On December 29th, South Africa submitted a case to the International Court of Justice charging that Israel is in violation of the Genocide Convention. Their case places the current violence in the context of decades of ethnic cleansing and apartheid against the native Palestinian population, as well as a 16-year blockade of the Gaza Strip. In the last 3 months, and I'm going to reference statistics from the South African submission, even though it's out of date. It was submitted December 29th. In the last 3 months, more than 21,000 Palestinians have been killed, including 7,000 children. Many more people are under the rubble, unaccounted for. More than 55,000 people have been injured. 80% of Gaza's 2.3 million residents have been internally displaced. 355,000 homes have been partially or completely destroyed, representing 60% of housing in Gaza. Only 14 of the 36 hospitals are functional, but only partially. More details about the death and destruction in the current round of this conflict can be found in the South African proceedings, which I would encourage you all to read. That being said, many in the U.S. want the violence to come to an end, with 61% of likely voters desiring a permanent ceasefire. So We would like the City of Troy to create a resolution calling for a ceasefire as a means of protesting the inaction of our political representatives, whose behavior does not reflect the will of the American people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Martin Marashi.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Martin. My family recently moved to Troy, so I'm here almost every day. One thing I noticed that the city of Troy is a very beautiful city, very diverse. There's actually a local mosque that I was so happy to find out that there is. So I go there, I frequent as much as I can. I try to volunteer. I'm a firefighter for the city of Detroit for about 2 years now. I've been in more house fires than I could actually count on my fingers. I remember one time clearly I was in a house fire and I seen a crib, a baby's crib. I go in there, I check it. My partner, I have about 5 minutes, hey Martin, come on, let's go upstairs. I say, no, there is a crib in here. I made sure to check every crevice of that room out of fear that there could be a human life in there. So that is why I'm here today, because I feel as a citizen, as well as my job duty, that no matter who we are or where we're from, that we should stand up for something that's going on a humanitarian reason specifically. It doesn't matter what race, religion, color you are. It doesn't matter. If I was on my way to go home right now, if I was to see a fire, a house fire, a building fire, you better believe that I will stop there and make sure that there's nobody inside. Even if that has to risk me losing my life, because I feel that one innocent person is way too many. So what's been going on is 50,000 civilians, over 15,000 children. This is a humanitarian. Yes, so I would love to see this beautiful city, this great growing city, to stand up, for this, as to be a leader, to project, our voice here. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much. You guys all have a good evening.
Thank you. That concludes those that have signed up for public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Now is an opportunity for City Council or City Administration to respond and reply to that public comment. Any comments? Response?
I know more people are speaking for that out of city, so I'll wait for them to respond.
We don't respond after that.
We don't? Oh.
No. So if you want to say something, you probably should say no.
Okay, I'll speak now, yeah. We don't respond to the future one.
Right. There's on our agenda, we don't have response and reply to public comment.
Okay.
Thank you. So if you want to speak now or no?
Yeah, I'll just speak real quick. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your story. Many devastating stories. This is something I need to think about. I'm glad to talk with any of you if you want to email me or call me and to hear more. It's something I'll think about.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Thank you all for coming and sharing your worries, your concerns, your love of humanity. And doing so respectfully. And understanding that this council developed a policy that is actually something in place that causes us to pause and not want to step into this. Taking this subject aside, there was solid and good reason for why we developed that policy. Seemingly obvious topics, which I'm not going to repeat again here, but I used to really want to lean into fellow residents and their passions on various topics with proclamations. Every single one of them, even the ones that seemed obvious and would be without debate, caused problems, caused blowback, caused division in a community that works so hard to not be divided. So the ask of a proclamation and a resolution for something that I know you all understand, you've said it here tonight at the microphone, is really beyond our mandate, but would help you feel affirmed that your leadership body in the city of Troy cares about what you're going through with loved ones back in this area. I understand the ask. I think maybe one of the things that isn't obvious or known is the work we do to protect the peace, to protect traditions and passions in the city of Troy. In October, some leaders within our community who have had various crises over time that brought them together, they came together immediately as this crisis was unfolding. Multi-faiths together to pray, to ask for peace, to think of those in this situation, to think of the families here in Troy with loved ones there. Multi-faith and the leadership, a number of us from council made sure we were there standing with this discussion, with this togetherness. This is a practice we've had in the city over a number of years, and we immediately came together. It wasn't a public forum. It isn't a resolution we all signed, but it was a coming together to acknowledge the humanitarian needs. And I guess I want to mention that here tonight so that you have an understanding that, yes, we have been paying attention to this, that we do very much care. I hear from Armenian friends with what's happening there. I hear from, when we did the Ukrainian resolution, I also heard from friends that have family in Russia who were worried. It's as if we need a resolution that calls for the world to not lose its mind and hurt one another. The pain is palpable. I've heard it from people with family in Palestine. I've heard it from people with family in Israel. My church has friends in both places. And we too have members in our church that do not know and can't hear from family in Gaza. If the question is, does your city council pay attention and does it care? The answer is yes, of course. Civilians nowhere should be going through what is happening. A resolution from us is a legitimate ask, and I understand the ask, especially when you've seen other communities that were able to step forward and do it. I'm hoping that you'll hear my sincere sentiment of the concern I have, given the very real experiences we have here in a city that speaks, I think now it is said, nearly 90 languages, of the challenge that these individual resolutions can present in terms of our passion for us to continue to come together and to continue to listen to one another. This is extremely difficult, painful. As Councilman Hamilton said, you know, he's willing to take calls and hear. What I'm starting to see is people having very real conversations of understanding together. And I hope that is something we can keep engendering here. But it is your officials at the federal level where your input needs to go and needs to be taken, and continue to give that input for your voices to be heard. And that is the best place for your voices to be heard. And know that here at home in Troy, our love for all our brothers and sisters in the community is real. We want to protect the safety. We want to keep together. We don't want to be debating this topic in our city council chamber. It is outside the scope of the very important business we have at hand. It doesn't mean it's not a serious topic that each of us takes into our lives and in talking with representatives and senators as we go forward. I do hear you. The images and the news, I'm absolutely familiar, and I'm tracking it and I'm following it. My head is not in the sand. I can assure you of that, and I want to make sure you do understand that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick. Additional comments? Councilmember Chamberlain-Crankle.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to echo what Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick just shared, you are here because of pain of your relatives, pain of your family, and that is what has drawn you out. And as you just heard from my colleagues, we hear you. We hear that pain. You might be aware I was the author of the Ukraine Proclamation, and that came out of a need to, or desire to also want to just stand with pain, the pain that people were feeling. But one difference I do want to point out is that proclamation sought to stop there. It sought to stop with standing in solidarity, and it also recognized there are Russians in Russia who also stand with humanity and stand with peace. In this case, calling for a ceasefire, that is a foreign policy stance. When I authored a proclamation, I did not seek to make a foreign policy stance as a local elected official. And I say that as someone who does have a foreign policy background. I came out of Washington, D.C. as a PhD. I worked at the Wilson Center, a leading think tank. I was at the World Bank. I briefed ambassadors. I briefed Deputy Secretary of States. I sent talking points to the White House. I know foreign policy. I know what it is. I know what it's not. I know what it can do, and I know its purpose. For me, as a local official, number one is to stand with you all as my residents. And just as Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick stated, we have been seeking to do this. And the example was about half of this council attended this beautiful interfaith prayer group that we had that brought together our Muslim, our Jewish, our Christian, our Hindu community. And what I would like to ask you all is, could we do something like that again? For our residents who are here, could we find some way to come together? Things that are coming locally led, that are meant to be generative and to bring people together, I think in a time of so much division. That is, I believe, what can bring healing. And so I am here if anyone would like to come. I am a person of faith, a Christian, but I would be open as appropriate if anyone would like to gather and make a time to have a prayer, an interfaith prayer. I would like to do that because I am praying. I am crying. the situation across the board. I have people and friends on both sides who are impacted. So I want to stand in prayer. To me, prayer is hope. Prayer is light. And if anyone wants to join me in prayer, that's what I would like to move forward on, because that's what I think is going to bring light in this difficult moment. A proclamation, I don't think can do that. But togetherness and prayer, I believe can.
Thank you. Councilmember Chamberlain Craig. A couple of things I'll start with. I feel an obligation as the mayor, even though I'm just one of 7 up here. I feel like I need to say a few words as well, because as has been said by everyone, the safety and security and the minds and hearts of our residents here in Troy are what we're tasked with caring for in our government roles. And it is always what I'm looking at when I'm looking at how to do the business of this city. And I feel I need to speak in my role a little bit. Although everyone who's spoken, Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick and Councilmember Chamberlain Craig and Councilmember Hamilton in his way as well, I do know their hearts, and I know where they're coming from, and I can tell you in my time here in Troy City government, there's not a council that's more caring and concerned about the well-being of our residents here in this city on every level. And it may seem strange sometimes with us up here and the way we sit and we're talking about business and seemingly saying, we hear you and we understand where you're coming from, but it's outside of our scope. That can be a difficult but to hear. And I promise you it's not coming from a place of lack of caring, lack of understanding to a certain level, and not wanting to do as much as we can to soothe and comfort our residents who are our neighbors and friends who we live amongst every day in the city. And I want to take a step back, and I know there's some friends from outside of Troy that are going to be speaking a little bit, but to those who have spoken already, I want to commend you all for, one, following the rules. That's the first part. I'm always thankful of good decorum in these, what are essentially business meetings, but I really do commend you for coming forward with your passion, with your respect for the process that's in place. And it's always our goal, my goal, I speak personally, but of course I know it's all of our goal, to provide an opportunity for you to have that safe space to speak, and we want to hear from you, which is why this process is set up the way it was. And I am very aware of the difficulty it is for some people to come forward and speak in public. It can be very nerve-wracking. And those of you who showed your nerves or didn't show your nerves this evening, it tells me how important it was for you to come here on a Monday evening to speak to the 6 of us up here tonight about something that obviously weighs heavy on your hearts and is something that you really felt passionate about coming forward tonight. And so I appreciate that and recognize that, and we do hear you, and really am proud to be among so many caring residents who are, one, so well-spoken, I always talk about that, but who can speak with such passion and eloquence about the issues that are affecting their lives and all of our lives. And it really is a beautiful expression of what our community is all about. We've talked about our Troy Area Interfaith Group and the work that group of individuals, Troy residents, bring to the community. It is a beautiful group of people that also share all of their hearts and their love and wear their hearts on their sleeve. I can't tell you how many times I've seen the members of different faith traditions coming together and sharing tears and sharing joy in a way that seemingly crosses all potential conflicts that exist in their own belief systems and certainly throughout the world. Consistent with what's been said, and those of you who came here know it is outside the scope of our ability to, not outside the scope of our ability, but it's frankly against our rules to do something of a ceasefire proclamation or resolution that you're asking for. And those rules are in place for a very, very good and important reason. Because just as it's important for us to share in your pain and share and hear from you, we have an obligation to residents throughout our city who maybe see things differently. And frankly, I'm personally very cautious and concerned about hurting anyone by seemingly trying to help someone else. And I really, I know that the residents of Troy understand that, and I also know that it doesn't feel good, and it's going to be something that's going to stick, and there's still going to be a request, I'm sure. Our policy did get updated for a number of reasons. It did come after the Ukraine resolution, which Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranka spoke about a little bit, and the potential differences in that. But it wasn't just about Ukraine, and again, there's been previous proclamations or resolutions that were, despite best efforts, probably not an appropriate business item for this council, but also didn't go far enough to have the proper vetting and the proper work done to ensure accuracy and ensure that people of our community would not be hurt by what was said. And despite credentials of any individual one of us, our city government is not set up to be weighing in on foreign policy matters. And I do think that's an important distinction. So I can say very comfortably, it breaks my heart that any resident of our city is hurting. It breaks my heart that any person in the world is hurting. And I know that we all should continue to, whether it pray or do what we can to try to advocate for a resolution another way. It's just, other than having the opportunity to hear from you this evening and to share some thoughts, it's not an appropriate forum here in business of our city to be issuing such a resolution. I do again, it's really important to me. I know other communities have had residents speak out, come and ask for a resolution. Some have said yes, some have said no. I want to commend the residents of Troy that have spoken tonight for your decorum and for your ability to come here and speak with your hearts clearly visible, but also in a way that is respectful of our city and frankly is what I believe our city is all about. So thank you for that this evening. Next up are council referrals. We have none this evening. Our reports are the next item on the agenda. Anyone like to make any comments about any of the reports this evening? All right, we move on to council comments. Council comments. Councilmember Hamilton.
Just Happy New Year, everyone. It's good to be back.
Councilmember Chanda.
Same, yeah. Happy New Year. You know, we're excited. We're going to have a lot of work ahead of us. So I also very heartful and painful to hear so many people hurting all over the world. So it is, unfortunately, you know, what we heard from others. It's something we as a city council better not to take action, but individually be empathetic to each and every one of you. But yeah, we have a lot of work ahead of us and look forward to working with everyone.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranka.
Thank you, Mayor. Going back to kind of the heart of what we do as government, well, first of all, Happy New Year. Happy 2024. Going back to the heart of government, 2023 ended in an unfortunate experience for me. I got into an accident running. It was dark, early in the morning, on our own Troy sidewalks. And I think what it taught me, so it was a trip hazard. It's one of those uneven sidewalks. And I think it reminded me on really the role that our roads and our sidewalks play in our public safety for all of our residents. And that, at the end of the day, is what we're charged to deal with. And so I'm in a mask because I'm still healing. It was pretty bad. I had to even go to the ER, have a CT scan, make sure I didn't have a concussion. I am grateful to the city and the mayor. You reminded me. So we've both had running accidents. So I reached out to the mayor, and the mayor encouraged me to report it. So I also want to say to residents, if you ever trip on a sidewalk, it's uneven. We haven't, you can just send an email to the city, but there's also an app, and I use the app, as you said, Mayor. Reported the location, and the city within hours, they temporarily filled it because there was a bit of a gap there. But the response also said is it's temporarily filled and waiting for resources and the right time for it actually to be permanently fixed. And it's a reminder, going into 2024, we have some financial challenges. We have things that we need to address as a city to make sure we can provide for the health, safety, and welfare from our roads to our sidewalks. And so I look forward to digging in. It will be over the coming years that you're going to hear us talk more about the infrastructure needs that we have as a city. But I had a personal experience that has helped me to recommit to the power and importance of our infrastructure and to stand with our residents to encourage you are all safe. And I am a living example of what happens when, when we do have things we need to fix in the city. So again, that is our first charge as a city, just to remind folks, and reach out to us if you see things, because we're here for you.
Thank you, Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranka.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Brooks.
First of all, Happy New Year to everybody as well. Monday is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And, Dr. King obviously stood for, unity and for everyone of all backgrounds to try to get along. And so this is a wonderful day for us to reflect and for us to also give service to others. And I think, we heard from all of you, and I really do appreciate all of your heartfelt stories, and really, really do appreciate it. It's such a difficult time, not only in our community, in our nation, and in the world. There's so much division everywhere. So I really hope that people can come together, at least on Monday, and just really take that time to reflect and like I said, give back. The Troy School District will be having their MLK Day of Service, which is a wonderful event that's held at Troy Athens. I think it's at 8:30 in the morning. So I encourage everyone to come out, and it's a wonderful event where all of the members of the community really come together and do something good for the betterment of others. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Councilmember Brooks. All right, that concludes council comments this evening. Next up is public comment for items on or not on the agenda from members of the public outside of Troy, so not Troy residents and not from Troy businesses. And there are a handful of you signed up as well. So same rules apply as before. And I will call on the first person, who is Rose Otto Sipple.
Good evening. My name is Rose Otto Sipple, and I worked for the City of Troy Police Department for over 25 years. I retired in 2024 to take care of my elderly parents. When I retired, the city promised me a monthly pension amount for the rest of my life. I was widowed twice and lived on a fixed income. I retired and took a home and equity loan out based on the city's promise to me. Now I am at risk of being unable to pay. The city is cutting my benefits 30% because of its errors in running the pension. This is the second time the city has cut my pensions due to their own errors. Now it's going back on its word for the second time. The city wants me to pay for its mistakes. The city's decision to do this hurts me and other retirees who rely on the city's promises. I understand that I'm not the only one that the city has miscalculated their funds. The city is supposed to act as an expert under Michigan law and running its pension. Now, how can the expert make so many errors? Retirees like me rely on the benefits the city promised. The city's pension is well-funded. The city can afford to pay what it promised. Cutting benefits when a city can afford them is cruel, and my asking to pay back $39,050.85 due to their errors. When I retired, I kept my insurance because I was over 25 years employed, and for which I'm very thankful. And however, I lost my dental and optical coverage. This cut damages people like me who have a pension system that is supposed to protect me. If the city followed the same laws that apply to the non-government plans, it would not be allowed to do this. The U.S. government passed a law last year that outlawed exactly what the city is doing, cutting benefits at this level due to its own errors. The law change requires the damages conduct like this can do. The city is relying on not getting caught and its retirees not having the resources to hold it accountable. I ask each city decision maker to put yourself in my shoes and ask yourself, how would you like it? How would it feel if you had lost 2 spouses and this happened to you in your retirement? Correcting your errors on my monthly check is devastating to me by asking me to pay back $39,050.85, going back 18 years.
Thank you, Ms. Seppel.
Pardon?
That concludes your 3 minutes this evening.
I'm sorry.
That's the end of your 3 minutes this evening. We're not set up to have a response, but I'm hoping that you've addressed your concerns to someone in administration who can then handle them appropriately, and I'll ask some follow-up questions as well.
And who would you suggest?
City Management, City Manager Miller. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Siraj Khan. I guess as maybe some people might have left after we spoke. Humaira Khan. All right, Syed Ahmed. All right, Saba Naz. Okay, that concludes those that have signed up for public comment for items on or not on the agenda for members of the public outside of Troy. We have no closed session this evening, so we are adjourned.